Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy! Today we have a piece of mesquite. This is going to be a real treat, I think. I've never turned mesquite before. Viewer Dan from Las Vegas brought this up to me, along with some other wood, and I'm looking forward to turning it. We're going to turn a bowl out of this crotch of mesquite. The piece is almost 12 inches this way, about 10 inches this way. About 4 inches thick on this end and 3.5 inches thick at the thickest one of these. I've drilled a hole right there and I'm going to put it on the woodworm screw and we're going to get to turning this and I'm looking forward to it. Let's get over here to the lathe. Probably going to be out of balance. It is, but not real bad. We'll see what kind of speed we can get as soon as I bring up the tailstock. About 550 RPM. I'm going to grab a 5/8 inch bowl gouge, get my mask and face shield on, and we're going to get to turning us a mesquite bowl. Pretty wood. I just want to get rid of this and kind of start over on the bottom here. Get a flat spot. May as well mark out for a tenon while we're here. This bark is coming loose over here and I'd rather it didn't, so I'm going to glue that down. Even though we're going to end up cutting some away, some of it might stay up this way. So I'll be right back. Just a warning, we all know this. I'm always careful when I use CA, but apparently this time I was not quite so careful and I got some on my fingers and I didn't know it. And then I sprayed the bark that I was gluing down with accelerant. And I got some of that on my fingers and holy smokes, that gets hot. I'm telling you, it gets hot. I thought my fingers were on fire. So be careful about that when you're using those two things together. You don't want to get CA on there anyway, but the accelerant, man. Okay, so I'm going to approach from the top side down, which is what you typically do, what I always do when I'm trying to keep the bark on, but this bark looked like it was going to stick with us, and it didn't, but I fixed it. So now I'm going to approach from the top side down so that I'm not lifting that bark up as I come this way. I'll be pushing it down that way. And we're turning at 575 RPM, mask and face shield on. Starting to smooth out a little. Boy, that's pretty. Isn't that nice? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cool. Well, I think I might try my shear scraper out here. Let me put an edge on it and I'll be right back. Well, I got to looking at this right after I sharpened my scraper, and I think I need to make my base a little bit bigger. It doesn't touch from here to here, and I'm afraid the weight might go this way. It's hard to tell. It seems to be pretty well balanced right now. Well, maybe, yeah, it does kind of lean this way. And I don't want it to rock on the base. So I'm going to work on this base, take it down a little further, up a little higher, trying to find a place for it to set on this side, a little more anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, that's much better. I don't want to go up too high. I want to save some of this, but that's much better. I'm just going to use this diamond point tool to square up the sides of the tenon. And that's good. Time for sanding. A while back I had an email exchange with a company called supergrit.com. I think it probably had to do with Sandoflex. They watched one of my videos, I guess, decided they wanted to send me some of their products. So they sent me a Sandoflex refill, but they also sent me some Abranet 2-inch sanding discs in various grits. This happens to be the 80 grit they sent me. I don't know if you're familiar with Abranet, but I always thought it was a more aggressive product, probably a better product than what I normally use. So I'm going to try that on here because I didn't get the nicest scraping job that I would like to have gotten. It's just pretty bumpy, so I'm going to try those. But first I'm going to use my Sandoflex in this area here, and I'm going to attempt to use it this way. From the top down, just along this edge, just to smooth out that bark. And I'll show you both of those things as soon as I get my mask on. Yeah, that's going to work real good. And then with the lathe spinning in reverse at 350. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was hardly any time at all. I'm not done. I know my sanding discs wouldn't have that feeling that smooth that quickly. Now, I'm not sponsored by anyone. They don't sponsor me. They did send me these packets of sandpaper to try, and I just thought I'd tell you about it. And I'll be honest, if it's not a review, but I'll be honest, if I feel they're better by the time I get through at least 400 grit. And I think they sent me some even finer than that. I'm not sure. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing for a while, is sanding, and I'll bring you back here in a little bit when it's time to put some finish on. I'm looking forward to that. See you in a bit. Okay, let's see if this grain pops or not. Well, I wouldn't say pops. Looks nice. I guess I was hoping the dark part would come out darker than it is, but it's still quite beautiful. And the grain pattern with this being a crotch is wonderful. This is a sanding sealer, and then I'll apply shellac as a final finish. And I will apply that in exactly the same manner I'm doing this. And I use a rag. I don't use a paper towel. I saw there was a comment about that. Paper towel will not work with sanding sealer or shellac. It's too sticky. And I said I'd tell you what I think of the Abranet sanding discs. First of all, they are more aggressive than my normal sanding discs, which are cloth backed. The Abranet has holes in it. It's like a perforated sanding disc, so the sanding dust can go through it more or less rather than clog it up right away. So they do seem to last a little longer, and they are more aggressive than what I normally use. Probably an overall higher quality than what I usually use. But what they sent me, I don't know if it's everything they have or if they just picked out some or what. It skipped a few grits. My normal progression is 80, 100, 120, 150, 180, 240, 320, 400. And they skipped 100, 150, and 320. So I don't see any difference, and I'm not sure that I feel any difference. I felt kind of odd skipping those grits. The piece sanded up very nicely, very smooth, and I did stop at 400. Now I've just put a little sanding sealer in this can, and I've got this little acid brush, and I'm just going to brush it into this bark. And I really like this bark. I'm looking forward to seeing what we get on the top side. And I always put it on with a rag first, then brush, then I put new sanding sealer on the rag and go over it again so that any drips that are coming down here, I'm not sure if there are any. Yeah, there are over here. So that I wipe those up and there's no brush marks. So it looks like probably 2 coats of sanding sealer, and then I'll do 2 coats of shellac, and I'll bring you back when it's time to start working on the inside. And I'm looking forward to that. See you in a bit. I have the piece turned around with the tenon mounted up in the chuck. This is going to be our only point of contact for a little while. That's the closest to the tool rest. And then this will be the next point of contact. And then this, and then this. So it's going to be quite the bumpy ride for a while. I want to be careful and not come out here too far that I run off the edge of this. At least I think that's what I want. That's what I'm going to do for a while. It may be that it's okay to run off. I don't know. We're going to be turning at just over 600 RPM, 5/8 inch bowl gouge, mask and face shield on. I'm going to get my scraper out and scrape this before I get too much deeper here. so hard to do when you only have one point of contact. If I could get my speed up more, it'd be better, but I cannot. Yeah, that's pretty good. Get back to turning. I just want to check my depth, or thickness, bottom thickness here. We're about a half an inch. I had to stop for a minute because I noticed there was a big piece of bark missing out of here. I looked down at the floor and there it was, so I glued that back in there. I think we're done scraping for a minute. I want to take another 1/4 inch off the bottom. Still turning at about 600 RPM. 5/8 inch bowl gouge, mask, and face shield on. There we go, 1/4 inch. Scrape that. Time for sanding. I'm going to be sanding the bark with my Sandoflex. I'm going to start with 120 grit because this bark is very coarse, and then I'll move to 180, and then that's as fine as I'll go on the bark. And then I'm going to switch to my normal 2-inch sanding discs just to see, because I've never turned this wood before, I want to compare how the Abernet. And I'll show you both of those things as soon as I get my mask on. That's going to do a nice job. Of course, I'll have to do more of it. You can see it's lifting some of it up here. So I'll have to approach from both directions. And then with the lathe spinning forward at about 350. And that doesn't look like that's going to be any problem. Again, I'm starting with 80 grit and I'll work up through 400. And I'll bring you back when it's time to put some sanding sealer on here. See you in a bit. Well, I'm about an hour and a half past my regular quitting time. And it's all due to this bark. It'll be worth it. The bark is going to be just beautiful with the finish on there. And like I said, it's a coarse bark, and all these little bitty pieces would pop up now and then. And I'd have to glue them down, and then I'd have to sand them, and individual, I mean little tiny flaky things just driving me nuts. But it's all part of the game. This grain is beautiful. The bark is beautiful. I really like the shape. So then, just like before, I've got some sanding sealer in a little can, and I've got my little acid brush, and I'll just start brushing this bark. And I have to be careful not to go too far over the edge, the nicely finished outside edge. So you can see this is going to take a little time. And I won't ask you to watch it all. I just wanted to get finished tonight. I didn't want to have to sand tomorrow. I hate leaving sanding for the beginning of a day. I'm going to turn the camera off, finish this up, and go in and take a shower, and eat my dinner. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a really good evening. Good night. Well, I've got some bad news. Listen. I've got a bearing going out. Bad news. This lathe is just over 3 years old. I don't know that it's a bearing, but I don't know what else it could be. I've looked around inside the headstock and the belts look good and everything's tight. I checked all the nuts and bolts, and so I hope I don't miss a week waiting to get it fixed. I've mounted a block of wood up in my chuck. I'm gonna place the bowl over that and bring up my tailstock. I still have the center hole there for reference. Just drive the live center into that. Apply a little pressure, bring up the tool rest. Spin the piece up and see if it seems like it's running true. Yep, that's good. I'm going to grab a 3/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge, turn the speed up to about 600 RPM and commence to removing that tenon. We'll check for clearance, and we have clearance, and that's pretty small, so I'm going to switch to a 3/8 inch swept back bowl gouge. I'm also going to adjust my tool rest a little bit closer and a little bit higher so that I don't get under that little nub, because that will cause it to pop right out of there. And I'm going to slow the speed down to about 400 RPM and just keep working it away. Now that's pretty small, so I'm going to turn the speed down to about 200 RPM. Now I'm going to apply the bevel of the gouge against the bottom of the bowl. Pressure towards the headstock. Right hand on the gouge, left hand on the switch. And when that little nub stops turning, we'll know we're through. Well, maybe I stopped it from turning, but it's pretty dang small. I thought it did stop on its own, but maybe not. No, it wasn't quite done. Sorry, Tuffy. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the workbench, chisel that off, sand it up, sign it, get it finished, and I'll be right back. Be sure you watch to the end of the video so you can see the before and after shots of this. Well, here it is. One Mesquite bowl in the books. This piece is just flawless. It's just really nice. I love the grain. Look at that. Wonderful. The yellow and the brown doesn't get much better. There's the bottom all finished up. Got bark on there. Love that. Thank you, Dan from Las Vegas, for bringing this up to us for all to enjoy. If you like this video, thumbs up please. I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. An easy way to subscribe is just click my picture you see there near the end of the video. Your comments are always welcome, and I read all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.